She danced. She sprayed cash. She laughed louder than anyone in that room. 200 guests watched the wife celebrate at her husband's baby naming ceremony and thought she had finally accepted her place. His mother whispered, "The useless one has made peace with it." His friends raised their glasses. His pregnant mistress smiled from the head table, the baby sleeping in her arms. And then the wife picked up the microphone. What came out of her mouth in the next 90 seconds destroyed her husband, exposed his best friend, and silenced the mother-in-law who had mocked her for 6 years because Vanessa Mitchell had been carrying a secret since before her wedding day, a medical document that proved her husband could never father a child, which means the baby everyone was celebrating was not his. And she knew exactly whose it was, but she did not reveal it when she found out. She did not scream. She did not leave. She cooked for the pregnant mistress every single morning. She smiled. She waited. For 3 months she played the role of the broken wife while quietly building something that would take down every person who had ever underestimated her. The question is not what she did. The question is why she waited, and the answer will change the way you think about patience, silence, and the quiet women in your life you have been ignoring. This story carries a lesson that most people learn too late. Not every woman who stays is weak. Not every woman who smiles has forgiven you. Some women are simply waiting for the moment when the truth will cost you the most. This story will teach you to never confuse a woman's silence with surrender. If you are ready for a story that will keep you on the edge of your seat for the next 100 minutes, stay right here. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss a story like this one. Drop a comment and tell us where you are watching from. And if someone in your life needs to hear this message, share this video with them right now. Trust me, they will thank you for it.
People say, fear women, but that is not true. You should fear a calm woman. You should fear the woman who smiles when she should be screaming. You should fear the woman who dances at a naming ceremony that was built on her humiliation, because that woman is not broken. That woman has a plan, and when her husband brought home a pregnant mistress and told his wife to take care of the woman replacing her, she said, "Okay." Now, if you are watching this and your first thought is, "I would never," hold on. Because what Vanessa Mitchell did next is something no one saw coming. Not her husband, not the pregnant mistress, not even the mother-in-law who had spent years tearing her apart. See, most people expected her to crumble. That is what her husband was counting on. A broken wife who would quietly disappear while he celebrated his new life. But she did not crumble. She cooked, she cleaned, she served the pregnant mistress with a smile every single day. And if you think that sounds like a woman who gave up, you are making the exact same mistake her husband made. Because at the naming ceremony, the big, loud, extravagant celebration her husband threw for 200 guests, Vanessa showed up dressed in gold, she danced, she sprayed cash, she celebrated harder than anyone in that room, and then she picked up the microphone and gave her husband a gift. And that gift did not just destroy him, it destroyed everything. Every lie, every secret, every person in that room who thought they had gotten away with something. But what was in that gift? What did Vanessa know that nobody else knew? And why did she dance right before she ended it all? Stay with this story, because what this woman was hiding will shock you. And it will teach you something about patience that you will never forget. Before we continue, kindly hit the subscribe button and tell us where you are watching from. The kitchen smelled like garlic and thyme. Vanessa Mitchell stood at the stove in her house in Plano, Texas, wooden spoon in her right hand, her left hand resting flat on the granite counter. She was humming a gospel song her grandmother used to sing while hanging laundry on the line back in East Texas. The pot was bubbling, the windows were fogged from the steam, and for a small, quiet moment in that four-bedroom house on Magnolia Lane, everything was peaceful. Then the front door opened. Michael's shoes hit the hardwood the way they always did, heavy, confident, the stride of a man who believed he owned every room he walked into. He was 6'2", with broad shoulders and a jaw that looked like it had been drawn by someone who wanted to build the perfect picture of a man who gets what he wants. Michael Mitchell was a real estate developer. He had built his company from nothing, or at least that is the story he told at dinner parties. The truth was a little more complicated, but we will get to that. Tonight there was a second pair of footsteps behind his. Lighter, slower, the careful steps of someone walking into a place they had never been before, but fully intended to stay. Vanessa turned the burner down. She wiped her hands on her apron and walked into the living room. And there he was, her husband of 6 years, standing in the center of the room, with his chest puffed out and his chin tilted upward at that particular angle he used in business meetings when he was about to say something he had rehearsed. He had practiced the words. He had adjusted his tone. He had convinced himself that what he was about to do was not just acceptable, but necessary. But Vanessa barely looked at Michael, because standing behind him, one hand resting on a belly that was round and full and impossible to ignore, was a young woman Vanessa had never seen before in her life. She was young, mid-20s at most. She had long auburn hair pulled into a loose ponytail, and she was wearing a white sundress that stretched across her stomach. She was not chewing gum or scanning the room with entitlement. She looked nervous. Her free hand was clutching the handle of a small, rolling suitcase, and her eyes were darting between Michael and Vanessa with the expression of someone who had been told one story and was now realizing the truth might be very different. Vanessa. Michael's voice filled the room. He did not whisper it. He did not ease into it. He said her name the way a man reads a memo he expects to be obeyed. This is Ashley. Ashley Brennan. She is carrying my son. The words landed in the room and just stayed there. Heavy, shameless, hanging in the air between the three of them like smoke that refused to clear. But Michael was not finished. He took a step forward and put his hands in his pockets, the way a man stands when he wants to appear casual about something that is anything but casual. I have been praying about this, Vanessa. I have talked to Pastor Whitfield. A man's legacy is his children. Ashley is giving me what you could not. I am not asking you to leave. I am asking you to help me raise the next generation of Mitchells. This is God's plan. Let me pause here, because what Michael Mitchell just did was not simply cruel. It was strategic. He did not storm in and scream. He did not throw things. He wrapped his cruelty in Scripture. He weaponized his wife's own faith against her, and that is more dangerous than any fist because it makes the victim question whether their pain is even justified. Pay attention when someone uses your own values to control you. A person who truly shares your faith would never use it as a leash. Remember that. Ashley spoke then, barely above a whisper. I am sorry. He told me you were okay with this. Vanessa looked at Ashley. She looked at this girl, this 25-year-old girl standing in her living room with a suitcase in one hand and a baby in her belly. And Vanessa understood something in that moment that would take months for anyone else to figure out. Ashley was not the enemy. Ashley was a pawn, a frightened, pregnant pawn who had been fed a story by a man who was very good at telling stories. Then Vanessa looked at Michael. She searched his face. She searched it the way you search the face of someone you love when you are hoping, praying to find even the smallest flicker of guilt or shame or conflict. Something that tells you the man you married is still in there somewhere behind all this performance. And for one moment, just one, she thought she saw it, a shadow behind his eyes, a hesitation in his jaw. The ghost of the man who used to bring her coffee in bed on Sunday mornings and tell her she was the best thing that ever happened to him, but then it was gone. And in its place was the polished expression of a man who had made his decision and expected the world to adjust. Vanessa's face softened, not into defeat, not into pain, into something warm, something inviting, something that, if Michael had been paying closer attention, should have made every hair on the back of his neck stand up. "You must be exhausted from the drive, sweetheart," Vanessa said. Her voice was gentle, steady, almost maternal. "Come with me. I will show you to the guest room. I will run you a bath and fix you a plate. You are eating for two now." Ashley blinked. She glanced at Michael, confused. Michael shrugged and grinned. This was better than he had expected. Vanessa walked down the hallway, and Ashley followed her, the pregnant mistress trailing behind the wife like a guest being welcomed into a hotel. Not a home she was there to destroy. Michael leaned against the doorframe and crossed his arms. He was smiling, the kind of satisfied, self-congratulating smile a man wears when he believes he has pulled off something others would have failed at. In Michael's mind, this was proof. Proof that Vanessa was exactly the kind of woman he always believed she was. Soft, obedient, and far too afraid to challenge him. But here's the thing about men like Michael. They mistake a woman's grace for weakness. They mistake her patience for ignorance. They see a wife who does not scream, and they think they have married someone who cannot. But some women do not scream because they have already decided, and when they finally open their mouths, screaming will not be necessary. What they are going to say will be loud enough. That night, after Ashley had eaten and bathed and fallen asleep in the guest room, after Michael had poured himself a whiskey and sprawled across the couch, scrolling through his phone, with the casual satisfaction of a man who believed the world had just rearranged itself according to his wishes, Vanessa sat on the edge of her bed in the dark. The house was quiet, the kind of quiet that comes after something terrible has happened and the noise has not caught up yet. She reached over to her nightstand. She opened the bottom drawer. Beneath a stack of old birthday cards and a pair of reading glasses she never wore, there was a brown envelope, sealed, dusty, 6 years old. Vanessa held it in both hands. She did not open it. She did not need to. She had memorized every word on the document inside the way a prisoner memorizes the number of steps from their cell to the door. Not because they are going anywhere, but because knowing the distance is the only thing that keeps them sane. Let me take you back. 6 years ago, 2 weeks before the wedding, Vanessa and Michael had done their premarital medical tests at Baylor University Medical Center. Standard procedure, blood work, screenings, the kind of thing every couple does when they are planning to build a life together. Michael was too busy closing a deal to pick up his results, so he asked Vanessa to collect them for him. She did. She drove to the medical center on a Tuesday morning. She signed the release forms. She collected both envelopes. And because she was Vanessa, because she was organized and thorough and the kind of woman who reads the fine print on everything, she opened Michael's results in the parking lot. The diagnosis was printed in clinical language that took her 3 reads to fully understand. Azoospermia, permanent, caused by a severe childhood infection. 0 viable sperm count. Michael Mitchell was sterile. He had been sterile since before puberty. He would never father a biological child. Vanessa sat in that parking lot for 2 hours. She sat there while the sun moved across the windshield and the engine ticked as it cooled, and a woman in the next parking spot loaded groceries into her trunk and drove away and was replaced by another car and another woman doing the exact same thing. Life just kept moving around her while everything inside her went perfectly still. She called her sister Brenda. Brenda was 3 years older, twice as loud, and the sharpest divorce attorney in Dallas County. She had an opinion about everything, and she was almost always right, which made her simultaneously the best and most annoying person to call in a crisis. Vanessa told her everything. Brenda's response was immediate. Cancel the wedding. Right now. If he finds out you know, he will blame you for knowing. If you tell him, he will hate you for telling him. And if you hide it, you will carry it alone forever. There is no version of this that ends well for you, Vanessa. But I love him, Brenda. Long pause on the other end of the line. Honey, love is not supposed to make you a hostage. But Vanessa married him anyway. She sealed the envelope. She put it in her nightstand drawer. And she carried that secret for 6 years. 6 years of Dorothy Mitchell, Michael's mother, sitting at the head of every family dinner, and turning to Vanessa with that tilted head and that voice dripping with sympathy that was really a blade dressed in velvet. So, Vanessa, any good news yet? 6 years of Michael's back, turning toward her in bed, night after night. The distance between them growing wider until it felt less like a marriage and more like a lease agreement where one party was no longer meeting the terms. 6 years of church women squeezing her hand in the parking lot after Sunday service with pity leaking from their eyes. 6 years of baby showers where pregnant women hugged her a little too long and thanked God a little too loudly that they were not her. And through all of it, Vanessa knew the truth. It was never her. It was never her body. It was never her failure. The man who stood beside her at the altar, the man whose mother called Vanessa barren and defective and useless, the man who let it all happen without saying a single word in her defense, that man was the one who could not. And Vanessa said nothing. She protected him. She swallowed the truth and let it sit in her stomach like a stone because she believed that was what love required. Here is something nobody teaches you. Protecting someone from a truth they need to hear is not love. It is a prison you build for yourself with your own hands. And the longer you stay in it, the harder it becomes to tell the difference between loyalty and captivity. Vanessa put the envelope back in the drawer. She closed it. She picked up her phone and called Brenda. It is happening, she said. He had brought someone home. Brenda's voice on the other end went from sleepy to sharp in half a second. I will have divorce papers drafted by Monday morning. Say the word and I will file before he finishes his coffee. Not yet, Vanessa said. I need to understand something first. What do you need to understand? Vanessa was quiet for a long time. Then she said, I need to understand how far he is willing to go, because that will tell me how far I need to go. She hung up. She placed the phone face down on the nightstand. She stared at the ceiling. Down the hall, Ashley was sleeping in the guest room, one hand on her belly, the other clutching her phone. In the living room, Michael was pouring his second whiskey, feeling like the most powerful man in Plano, Texas. And Vanessa sat in the dark, with her hands folded in her lap, and a stillness in her eyes that had nothing to do with peace. Something had shifted inside her. The way the air changes right before a storm rolls in. You cannot see it. But if you have lived long enough, you can feel it. And if you are smart, you go inside and lock the doors. Michael was not smart. Michael poured another whiskey and turned on the television. He had no idea what was coming. But you will, if you stay with me. For the next 4 weeks, Vanessa Mitchell lived under the same roof as the woman her husband brought home to replace her. 4 weeks of cooking for Ashley, 4 weeks of washing Ashley's clothes and folding them and placing them on the guest bed in neat stacks the way you would at a hotel where the tip matters. 4 weeks of smiling at a woman who slept 30 feet from her bedroom in a house Vanessa had turned into a home with her own 2 hands. And people talked. Of course they talked. Plano is not the kind of town where a man moves his pregnant mistress into his wife's house and nobody notices. The neighbors whispered across driveways and exchanged glances at the mailbox. The women at Grace Fellowship Church formed prayer circles that were really gossip circles with bowed heads and folded hands. Vanessa's own sister called her every single night for the first 2 weeks, saying the same thing. "Pack your bags, Vanessa. This man does not love you. Come stay with me. Let me file the papers. We can end this by Friday." But Vanessa did not pack. She did not leave. She did not raise her voice, even once. And that confused everyone. But the person it confused most was Ashley. See, Ashley Brennan had walked into that house expecting a war. She was 25 years old, almost 7 months pregnant, and full of the kind of confidence that only exists in someone who has never been truly tested by life. Michael had told her everything she needed to hear. He told her his wife was weak. He told her his wife was barren. He told her Vanessa would probably cry for a few days and then fall in line, because that is what Vanessa did. She fell in line, and for the first week, it looked exactly like that. Vanessa woke up every morning at 6. She made breakfast for 3. Turkey bacon because Ashley said pork made her nauseous. Toast with the crusts removed because Ashley mentioned once, just once, that she preferred it that way. And Vanessa remembered. She remembered every preference, every craving, every complaint Ashley muttered under her breath while scrolling through her phone at the kitchen table. Michael watched this happen every morning, and every morning it made him feel taller. He would sit at the head of the table with his coffee and his phone, watching his wife serve his pregnant mistress, and he felt like a king surveying his kingdom. Everything was in order. Everyone was in their place. He bragged about it too. On weekends, Michael would have his friends over, 2 or 3 at a time, sitting on the back patio with beers and brisket, while Vanessa served plates and refilled glasses. And Michael would lean back in his chair, belly full, grin wide, and say something like, "A woman who knows her place is a blessing." Vanessa finally gets it. She knows her time is up. His friends would laugh, some uncomfortably, some genuinely, but one of them did not laugh at all. His name was Daniel Hargrove. Now let me tell you something about Daniel. Daniel was Michael's best friend, had been since college. They played football together at Texas State, started their careers together, stood in each other's weddings. Daniel was the kind of friend who was always around, always at the cookouts, always at the birthday parties, always at the house for no particular reason on a random Tuesday. Michael trusted Daniel with everything, his business deals, his secrets, his house keys. Daniel Hargrove was the one person Michael believed would never betray him. Remember that. It becomes important later. But Vanessa noticed something about Daniel that nobody else noticed. Something small. Daniel had been acting differently, not in a big, obvious way, in the small ways that only someone paying very close attention would catch. He smiled too quickly when Michael talked about the baby. He looked at the floor when Ashley walked into the room. He excused himself to the bathroom a little too often when the conversation turned to the pregnancy. Vanessa filed these observations away the way she filed everything away, quietly, precisely, without ever letting her face show what her mind was doing. Meanwhile, something unexpected was happening between Vanessa and Ashley. It happened slowly, the way all dangerous things happen. First it was a thank you, after breakfast. Small, muttered, almost reluctant. Then it was a request that came out softer than usual. Could you maybe make that tea again? The one with honey? Then one night, about 3 weeks in, when Michael was out late and Ashley could not sleep because the baby was kicking and her back was on fire, she knocked on Vanessa's bedroom door. Vanessa opened it. Ashley stood in the hallway in an oversized t-shirt, one hand on her belly, eyes red from crying. My back hurts really bad. I cannot reach Michael. He is not picking up his phone. Vanessa stepped aside. Come sit on the bed. She rubbed Ashley's back for 45 minutes. She heated a towel in the dryer and pressed it against her lower spine. She made chamomile tea and sat with her until the pain faded and Ashley's eyes got heavy. Why are you being so nice to me? Ashley asked, half asleep, the question slipping out the way truths only do when someone's guard is completely down. Vanessa pulled the blanket up to Ashley's chin. Because someone should be, she said, and that answer, that gentle, devastating, perfectly measured answer, did something to Ashley that Michael's money and Michael's promises never could. It made Ashley trust Vanessa, and trust in the hands of a patient woman is the most dangerous currency in the world. The weeks turned into a full month, and Vanessa was not just watching Ashley, she was working. Behind every smile and every plate of French toast and every folded towel, Vanessa was building something. She was working with Brenda to document every financial asset Michael owned. She was confirming what she already knew, that the house on Magnolia Lane was deeded in her father's name. Her father, a retired Marine named Robert Lawson, had bought the house as a wedding gift, but had never transferred the title. It was still his, which meant it was still hers. She was gathering evidence, quietly, methodically. The way a woman gathers evidence, when she knows that when the moment comes, she will only get one chance to use it. 5 weeks after Ashley moved in, Brenda called with news that made Vanessa's hands shake for the first time in over a month. It is airtight, Brenda said. Her voice had the crisp satisfaction of a lawyer who has just finished building a case she knows cannot be broken. The house is Daddy's. Michael's business assets are well documented. I have records of every deposit, every withdrawal, every transfer he has made in the last 3 years. Combined with the infidelity evidence and the medical records, you will walk away clean. The house, a fair settlement, and a divorce decree before summer. Vanessa sat on the back porch that evening with a glass of sweet tea. The sun was going down, painting the sky in shades of gold and peach. She watched a pair of cardinals chase each other across the yard. She listened to the neighbor's sprinkler ticking in steady rhythm. And for the first time in 5 weeks, she exhaled. It felt like stepping out of a room where the ceiling had been getting lower every day. She could breathe. She could see the end. Not just the end of the marriage, but the end of the performance. No more cooking for Ashley. No more smiling at Michael's cruelty. No more sitting at Dorothy's dinner table and absorbing insults like a sponge that never gets wrung out. She allowed herself to think about the future, nursing school. She had been a pediatric nurse before Michael insisted she quit to focus on being a wife, which really meant focus on being available whenever he needed something. She had loved that job. She had been good at it. She could go back. For one evening, Vanessa Mitchell felt something close to peace. And then Monday morning happened. Michael called a family meeting. He stood in the living room in his business casual uniform, khaki pants, and a blue button-down, with the sleeves rolled to his forearms, his power pose, and he made an announcement that hit Vanessa like a truck she never saw coming. I have made some changes, Michael said. For tax purposes, I have transferred the business into Ashley's name. She is the mother of my heir. It makes sense for the company to be under her protection. He paused, letting that land. Then he continued, "And I have spoken with my attorney. I am filing for divorce from Vanessa, on grounds of abandonment of marital duties." He looked directly at Vanessa when he said it. Not with cruelty exactly, with the calm, detached expression of a man signing paperwork. "You will have 30 days to find alternative housing," he said. "I think that is more than generous, considering the circumstances." Vanessa felt the floor tilt beneath her, not because of the divorce. She wanted the divorce, but because of what he had just done to the financial picture. Transferring the business to Ashley meant the assets Brenda had spent weeks documenting were now legally in someone else's name. And filing first, with a lawyer who undoubtedly had connections all over Collin County, meant Michael was trying to control the narrative before Vanessa could write her own. He had been planning too. While Vanessa was cooking his mistress breakfast and building her case brick by brick, Michael had been quietly constructing his own offensive, not because he suspected Vanessa was planning something, but because Michael Mitchell was the kind of man who always needed to be 3 moves ahead, even when no one was playing against him. That night, Vanessa sat in the dark of her bedroom and called Brenda. "He lawyered up before I did," Vanessa said. Her voice was steady, but thin, like a wire pulled too tight. Brenda was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "We are still in a strong position. The house is Daddy's. That does not change, and a judge is going to look very unfavorably at a man who transferred business assets to his mistress right before a divorce filing. That is textbook dissipation of marital assets. But I am not going to lie to you, Vanessa. This just got complicated. And complicated means time. Time. That was the one thing Vanessa was running out of. Michael wanted her out in 30 days. The naming ceremony for the baby was being planned for 3 weeks from now. And every day she stayed in that house, she could feel the walls closing in tighter. She reached for the nightstand drawer. She pulled out the brown envelope. She held it in the dim light coming through the curtains. She could end this right now. One conversation, one piece of paper. "Michael, you are sterile. You have always been sterile. This baby is not yours. Game over." But if she played that card now, in private, with no witnesses, Michael would deny it. He would destroy the document. He would call her a liar and spin the story the way he always spun stories, with that jaw set and that voice so confident it made you doubt your own memory. She needed witnesses. She needed a room full of people who could not unhear what she was about to say. She needed the naming ceremony. Vanessa put the envelope back. She turned off the light, and she waited. The 8th week. The baby was due any day. Ashley was enormous and uncomfortable and increasingly dependent on Vanessa in ways that would have been ironic if they were not so deeply sad. She asked Vanessa to help her pick out the baby's coming home outfit. She asked Vanessa to drive her to her checkup because Michael was in meetings all day. She even asked Vanessa to help her practice swaddling using a rolled-up towel and a YouTube video. And through all of it, Vanessa was watching. Not just Ashley. She was watching Daniel. Because the small things she had noticed weeks ago had not stopped. They had multiplied. Daniel brought Ashley's favorite sparkling water to the house without anyone asking him to. Daniel knew Ashley's exact due date, down to the day, even though Michael had only ever said late April. Daniel's eyes found Ashley the moment he walked into any room, then immediately looked away. The reflex of someone who has trained themselves not to stare at the person they want to stare at most. And then Vanessa found the receipt. It was a Tuesday. She was doing laundry, a chore she had taken over completely because it gave her access to every pocket and every jacket in the house. She reached into the inside pocket of a navy blazer she assumed was Michael's, and pulled out a folded pharmacy receipt. She unfolded it. The receipt was from a Walgreens on Preston Road. The purchase was a bottle of prenatal vitamins. The date was from 7 months ago, 3 months before Michael claimed he found out Ashley was pregnant. Vanessa looked at the name on the receipt. It was not Michael's. It was Daniel Hargrove's. She stood very still in the laundry room. The dryer hummed behind her. The house was empty. Michael was at work. Ashley was napping. And Vanessa was holding a piece of paper that had just rewritten the entire story she thought she was living in. Daniel had been buying prenatal vitamins for Ashley 3 months before Michael knew about the pregnancy, which meant Daniel knew about the baby before Michael did, which meant Daniel and Ashley had a relationship that predated Michael's involvement entirely. Vanessa did the math. She did it slowly, carefully, the way a woman does math when the answer is going to change everything. If Daniel and Ashley were together before Michael, and if Michael was sterile, then the baby Ashley was carrying, the baby Michael had upended his entire life for, the baby he called his heir, and his legacy and the future of the Mitchell name was not Michael's baby. It was Daniel's. Vanessa put the receipt in her pocket. She did not gasp. She did not sit down. She finished folding the laundry, placed it in neat stacks on the bed, and walked to the kitchen to start dinner. Sometimes the truth does not arrive as one big revelation. It arrives as a pharmacy receipt in a jacket pocket. Pay attention to the small things. They are almost always the big things in disguise. Over the next few days, Vanessa watched Daniel and Ashley with new eyes. And now that she knew what she was looking for, she saw it everywhere. The way Ashley's posture relaxed when Daniel was in the room, the way Daniel's hand brushed Ashley's shoulder when he handed her a glass of water, lingering a half-second too long. The way they never spoke to each other directly when Michael was present, but always seemed to be having a conversation with their eyes. It was all there. It had always been there, but nobody was looking because nobody expected the best friend to be the betrayer. Vanessa did not confront anyone. She did not tell Brenda. Not yet. She took a photo of the receipt. She placed the blazer back on its hanger, and she added this new piece of information to the architecture of what was building inside her. The naming ceremony was 2 weeks away. Michael had booked the Whitfield Event Hall. He had hired a caterer. He had ordered 200 invitations printed in gold lettering that read, "Welcome Michael Jr. The legacy continues. 200 guests, 200 witnesses." Vanessa did not change her expression. She did not alter her routine. She continued to cook. She continued to clean. She continued to be exactly what everyone expected her to be, a quiet woman who had accepted her place. But inside, behind that gentle smile and those steady hands, Vanessa Mitchell was building something that Michael's 200 gold-lettered invitations could never have prepared him for. 12 days before the naming ceremony, 3 things happened in rapid succession that nearly destroyed everything Vanessa had built. The first catastrophe arrived on a Wednesday morning, wearing a church hat and too much perfume. Dorothy Mitchell showed up at the house unannounced. This was not unusual. Dorothy had a key and she used it the way she used everything, without asking and without apology. She let herself in, walked past Ashley, who was watching television in the living room, and went straight to the master bedroom. Vanessa was at the grocery store. The house was Michael's domain, and by extension, Dorothy's, and Dorothy moved through it with the proprietary confidence of a woman who believed her son's house was really her house with extra steps. She was looking for something. Later, she would claim she was looking for a photo album from Michael's childhood that she wanted to display at the naming ceremony. But Dorothy Mitchell did not go to the bookshelf where the photo albums were kept. She went to Vanessa's nightstand. She opened the top drawer. She found nothing remarkable. She opened the bottom drawer. The brown envelope was gone. Vanessa had moved it to Brenda's office, safe 2 weeks earlier, but Dorothy found something else. A yellow legal pad with handwritten notes, and at the top of the first page, printed in Vanessa's neat handwriting, was the letterhead of Brenda's law firm. Dorothy did not read the notes. She did not need to. The letterhead was enough. She closed the drawer, walked out of the house, and called Michael. "Your wife is planning something," she said. "I found a lawyer's notepad in her nightstand. She is up to something, Michael. You need to handle this." That was catastrophe number 1. Catastrophe number 2 arrived that same evening. Michael came home early. He did not go to the kitchen, where Vanessa was preparing dinner. He went straight to the bedroom. He searched the nightstand. He found the legal pad. He read the notes, which thankfully contained only general legal terminology and no specifics about medical records or pharmacy receipts. But it was enough to make him dangerous. He found Vanessa in the kitchen. He stood in the doorway and crossed his arms. "If you try to embarrass me at that naming ceremony," he said, his voice low and controlled and sharp as a razor, "I will make sure you leave this marriage with nothing. Not the house, not a penny, not a shred of dignity. I have friends in every law firm in this county, Vanessa. Do not test me." Vanessa did not look up from the onions she was dicing. "I do not know what you are talking about, Michael. Do not play dumb with me. My mother found your little lawyer notes. Your mother was going through my nightstand. My mother can go through whatever she wants in my house." Vanessa set down the knife. She wiped her hands on the dish towel and looked at Michael with an expression that was perfectly, terrifyingly neutral. "I spoke with a lawyer because you told me you are filing for divorce, Michael. That is not a crime. That is common sense." Michael stared at her. He was looking for cracks, looking for fear, looking for some sign that his threat had landed where he intended it to land. He found nothing. Vanessa's face was as smooth and unreadable as a lake on a windless day. Michael turned and walked out, but the threat hung in the air like smoke, and Vanessa knew that her margin for error had just gotten thinner than paper. Catastrophe number 3 came the next day, and this one was the worst. Daniel Hargrove showed up at the house in the middle of the afternoon. Michael was at work. Ashley was at a doctor's appointment. Vanessa was alone. Daniel walked into the kitchen without knocking. He was sweating. His shirt collar was dark with it. His eyes were the eyes of a man who has not slept properly in days and has been running on caffeine and panic. "I know you know," he said. His voice was shaking. "About me and Ashley. I have seen the way you look at me. You have figured it out." Vanessa said nothing. She leaned against the counter and let him talk. "If you say anything at that ceremony, I will deny everything. I will tell Michael you made it up because you are bitter. I will tell everyone you are a jealous, barren woman trying to destroy a happy family. It will be your word against mine, and nobody in that room is going to believe the discarded wife over the best friend." He was breathing hard. His hands were clenched at his sides. He was not threatening Vanessa with violence. He was threatening her with something he believed was worse: irrelevance. The idea that no one would listen to her even if she screamed the truth from the rooftop. Vanessa looked at Daniel for a long moment. Then she spoke, and her voice was so quiet he had to lean forward to hear it. "Daniel, I do not need anyone to believe me. I have Michael's medical records from Baylor University Medical Center. They show he has a condition called azoospermia, permanent 0 sperm count. He has never been capable of fathering a child, which means your DNA is the only explanation for that baby. So you can deny it all you want. Math does not lie, and neither does a blood test." Daniel's face went white. Not pale, white. The color of a man who has just realized that the walls he built around his secret were made of paper. He left without another word. Vanessa stood alone in the kitchen. Her hands were trembling, not with fear, with adrenaline. 3 catastrophes in 3 days. Dorothy finding the notepad, Michael issuing his threat, Daniel trying to preemptively discredit her. Any one of these could have broken her plan. Any one of these could have made a lesser woman fold. But Vanessa Mitchell was not a lesser woman. She was a woman who had survived 6 years of Dorothy's dinner table. She was a woman who had carried a secret that could destroy her husband and chose mercy every single day for 2,190 days. 3 more catastrophes were not going to stop her. They were going to fuel her. When someone threatens you with, "Nobody will believe you," they are telling you they know you are right. People do not threaten to discredit the truth unless the truth is exactly what they are afraid of. Remember that. 9 days until the naming ceremony, Vanessa picked up her phone and called Brenda. "Is everything still on track?" "Everything is ready," Brenda said. "Divorce papers are finalized. The medical report is professionally framed. And I have something new for you." A private investigator found a joint bank account opened by Daniel Hargrove and Ashley Brennan 4 months before Michael even knew Ashley existed. Hotel receipts too. "This is ironclad." "Good," Vanessa said. "Saturday. Everything happened Saturday." The baby came on a rainy Tuesday morning, 8 days before the naming ceremony. Ashley's water broke at 4 in the morning. Michael drove her to the hospital in a panic, running 2 red lights and forgetting his wallet on the kitchen counter. But it was Vanessa who had packed the hospital bag 3 days earlier. It was Vanessa who had folded the baby's first outfit and placed it in a clear bag. It was Vanessa who had written a small card that said, "Welcome to the world, little one." The delivery was smooth. A healthy baby boy, 7 pounds, 4 ounces. Michael held his son in the hospital room and cried. Real tears. The kind that come from somewhere so deep they catch even the person crying off guard. He kissed Ashley's forehead. He called his mother. He called Daniel. He called everyone, except Vanessa. But Vanessa was already there. She had driven to the hospital separately, sat in the waiting room for 6 hours, and when the nurse came out to announce the birth, Vanessa stood, smoothed her dress, and said, "Beautiful, just beautiful." The naming ceremony was set for Saturday, 5 days away. Michael wanted it fast, grand, and public. He wanted the world to see his son. The night before the ceremony, Vanessa sat at her vanity mirror. The house was quiet. Michael was out with his friends, having a pre-celebration dinner. Ashley was sleeping with the baby beside her in a bassinet. Vanessa opened the drawer of her vanity and pulled out a small velvet box she had purchased that afternoon. Inside was a pair of gold earrings. She put them on. She looked at herself in the mirror for a long, still moment. Tomorrow she would stand in a room full of 200 people and do something that could not be undone. Tomorrow she would take 6 years of silence and turn it into the loudest moment of her life. She was not angry. That surprised her. She had expected to feel rage, the kind of rage that burns hot and bright and makes your hands shake. But what she felt instead was something cooler, something more precise. It was the feeling of a woman who had weighed every option, considered every consequence, and arrived at a decision that was not born from impulse, but from absolute clarity. She thought about the version of herself who had sat in that hospital parking lot 6 years ago, holding Michael's medical results and trembling hands, crying into the phone while Brenda told her to cancel the wedding. She thought about all the versions of herself between then and now. The version who served Thanksgiving dinner while Dorothy told the entire table that God was punishing Vanessa for something she must have done in a past life. The version who lay awake at night beside a man who had turned his back to her so many times she had memorized the pattern of moles on his shoulder blades. The version who packed a hospital bag for another woman's baby with steady hands and a breaking heart. All of those versions had carried the weight so that this version, the one sitting in front of this mirror in gold earrings, could finally set it down. She turned off the light. She went to bed. She slept better than she had slept in 6 years. Saturday morning arrived wearing sunshine. Vanessa woke at 6. She showered. She did her hair. She put on the gold dress she had picked out 2 weeks ago, fitted and elegant. She clasped the gold necklace her grandmother had left her. She looked in the mirror one last time. The woman looking back at her was not the woman Michael had married. That woman was gone. In her place was someone new, someone who had been forged in 6 years of fire and was about to walk through it one final time. She picked up her purse. Inside it was the brown envelope, the stack of cash, the divorce papers, and a tube of lipstick she applied one final time before walking out the door. "Let us go," she said to no one. The Whitfield Event Hall on Preston Lane was the kind of place people in Plano rented when they wanted everyone to know they had money. High ceilings, polished concrete floors, floor-to-ceiling windows that let the Texas light pour in like God himself was providing stage lighting. Michael had spared no expense. Round tables draped in white linen filled the room. Gold centerpieces sat on every table. A banner stretched across the back wall in bold lettering. "Welcome Michael Jr. The legacy continues." The barbecue station ran along the left side of the hall. Brisket, ribs, pulled pork, cornbread, coleslaw, and pecan pie. The smell hit you before you even walked through the door, thick and smoky, and the kind of smell that makes you forget why you were angry about being invited in the first place. And that was the trick. Michael Carter understood something about people. Feed them well enough, and they will clap for anything. Guests started arriving at noon. They came in waves. Church members in their Saturday best. Business partners in sport coats and loafers. College friends who had not seen Michael in years, but were not about to miss free barbecue and an open bar. Cousins from Houston, aunts from Shreveport. 200 people, just like Michael wanted. 200 witnesses to the moment his name became immortal. Michael stood near the entrance, greeting every guest like a politician on election night. Firm handshake. Big smile. "Thank you for coming. Wait till you see my boy. He has got my jawline already." He was wearing a custom navy suit with a gold pocket square that matched the invitations. In his inside jacket pocket was a small velvet box containing a 2-carat diamond ring. Today was not just about the baby. Today, Michael Mitchell was going to propose to Ashley in front of every person who mattered in his life. Ashley sat at the head table in a cream-colored dress. The baby was asleep in her arms. She looked beautiful and terrified. Her eyes kept scanning the room, looking for someone. She found Daniel in the third row. Their eyes met for half a second, then both looked away. Dorothy Mitchell was already working the room. She moved between tables like a campaign manager, hugging guests she barely knew, dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief she did not need, whispering loud enough for 5 tables to hear, "My grandson, my legacy, God is faithful." She stopped at the table where Vanessa's family was sitting. Vanessa's father, Robert, sat with his back straight and his jaw set, a retired Marine who looked like he was attending a briefing rather than a party. Brenda sat beside him, her purse on her lap, her eyes sharp, her leg bouncing under the table. With barely contained energy, Dorothy squeezed Robert's hand and tilted her head. "Thank you for coming. I know this must be difficult. Robert looked at Dorothy the way a man looks at a wasp that has landed on his plate, with patience, but with the clear understanding that patience has a limit. Brenda put her hand on her father's arm. "Not yet, Daddy," she whispered. "Not yet." And then Vanessa walked in. The room did not go silent, not exactly, but something shifted. Conversations did not stop. They just got quieter. Heads turned in sequence, a ripple that started at the tables nearest the door and moved inward like a wave. Because Vanessa Mitchell did not walk into that naming ceremony looking like a woman who had been replaced. She was wearing the fitted gold dress that moved when she moved. The gold jewelry, her grandmother's necklace, caught the light from the windows every time she took a step. Her hair was done. Her makeup was flawless. Her posture was the posture of a woman who had somewhere to be and knew exactly what she was going to do when she got there. She walked through that room like she owned it, not with arrogance, with certainty, the kind of certainty that makes people stare without knowing why. Michael saw her from across the room. His smile flickered for half a second. Just a glitch. Then it came back wider than before. He nudged one of his friends. "See? She showed up. She knows her place." Dorothy watched Vanessa cross the room and leaned toward the woman sitting next to her. Look at her, dressed up like she is the guest of honor. Sad, really. Vanessa did not sit down. She did not go to a corner. She walked straight to the barbecue station, picked up a plate, loaded it with brisket and cornbread, and sat down at a table right in the center of the room. She ate slowly. She smiled at the people around her. She complimented the coleslaw. And then the music changed. The DJ switched from the background playlist to something with bass and drums, the kind of beat that makes your chest vibrate and your feet move before your brain gives permission. A few guests got up. Michael's cousins hit the floor first, pulling reluctant wives behind them. The energy shifted from polite to alive, and that is when Vanessa stood up. She pushed her chair back. She set her napkin on the table, and she walked to the dance floor. She danced. Not the polite, restrained two-step that wives do at events where they are trying not to draw attention. Vanessa danced like a woman who had been set free from something heavy. She moved with her whole body, arms up, head back, laughing, spinning. She clapped on the offbeat, and the room clapped with her, caught up in an energy they did not understand but could not resist. Then she reached into her purse. She pulled out the stack of cash, crisp bills, folded once, and she started spraying it toward the head table, into the air, where it floated and spun under the lights like confetti. She sprayed money on Ashley. She sprayed money toward Michael. She danced and she sprayed and she laughed and the room erupted. Michael was grinning so wide his face looked like it might split open. He turned to his mother. "You see that? Even Vanessa is celebrating. She finally gets it." Dorothy nodded slowly, watching with narrowed eyes. The useless one has made peace with it. Good for her. Every person in that room looked at Vanessa, dancing, and thought they understood what they were seeing. A broken woman performing happiness. A wife who had surrendered, but surrender is quiet. Surrender sits in the back row. Surrender does not put on real gold and dance like the room belongs to her. What Vanessa was doing on that dance floor was not surrender. It was the last move before checkmate. The music faded. The DJ lowered the volume. Michael stood up from the head table. He straightened his jacket. He touched the velvet box in his pocket. This was his moment, the proposal, the final act of his grand production. He walked toward the DJ booth and took the microphone. The room began to settle. Chairs scraped, conversations dimmed. 200 people turned their attention to the man at the front of the room. "Ladies and gentlemen," Michael said, his voice booming with the confidence of a man who had never once doubted his right to be heard. Thank you all for being here to celebrate my son, Michael Jr., the next generation of the Mitchell name. Applause. Whistles from his college friends, Dorothy dabbing her eyes. But I have one more announcement, Michael continued. He pulled the velvet box from his pocket and turned toward Ashley. Ashley Brennan, you have given me the greatest gift a man can receive. He opened the box. The diamond caught the light. A gasp rippled through the room. Will you? Michael? Vanessa's voice cut through the room. Not loud, not shrill, but clear and sharp and perfectly timed, like a single note struck on a piano in an otherwise silent concert hall. She was standing 10 feet from him. Her hand was extended. Before you finish that sentence, she said, I have a gift for your son. May I? The room was confused. Michael hesitated. The velvet box was still open in his hand. But 200 people were watching, and refusing his wife's gift to his child would look cruel, even by his standards. He lowered the box. He forced a smile. He handed her the microphone. From the corner table, Brenda whispered to her father, Here we go. Robert took one more bite of his brisket and set down his fork. He folded his hands on the table. He was ready. Vanessa held the microphone. 200 people were silent, the kind of silence that has weight. You could feel it pressing against your chest, pressing against the windows, pressing against the gold centerpieces that were not real gold, but close enough to fool people who were not paying attention. My husband, Vanessa said. Her voice was smooth, controlled, warm, even. The kind of voice you use when you are about to say something you have rehearsed so many times it no longer carries any emotion, just precision. Congratulations on your son. Michael leaned back in his chair and grinned. Thank you, baby. Maybe you will learn something from Ashley. A few people laughed. Not many, but enough for Michael to feel like he had landed a joke. Vanessa smiled. She let the laughter settle. She let it die completely. And then she began. 6 years ago, 2 weeks before our wedding, we did pre-marital medical tests. Standard procedure, blood work, screenings. Nothing unusual. But you were too busy to pick up your results, Michael. You asked me to collect them for you, so I did. Michael's smile was still there, but it was frozen now. Stuck in place, the kind of smile that stays on a face only because the muscles have not received the signal to stop. I picked them up from Baylor University Medical Center, Vanessa continued, and I read them. And what I found in those results changed everything, but I hid them because I loved you, because I did not want to damage your ego, because I thought protecting you was my job, even when you never once thought protecting me was yours. She opened her purse. She pulled out the brown envelope. She opened it slowly, deliberately, with the steady hands of a woman who had been waiting 6 years for this exact moment. She pulled out a framed medical report and held it up where the room could see it. This is a diagnosis of azoospermia, she said. For those of you who do not know the medical term, it means 0 sperm count, permanent, caused by a severe childhood infection. Michael Mitchell has not been capable of fathering a child since before we ever met. The silence in that room was the kind of silence that changes the shape of a room. You could feel it pressing against every surface. 200 people sat frozen, forks suspended, glasses halfway to lips, mouths open, eyes locked on the woman at the front of the room holding a piece of paper that had just rewritten every story Michael Mitchell had ever told about himself. Michael's face had gone gray, not pale. Gray, the color of a man whose brain is processing information faster than his body can respond to it. His eyes were on the medical report. His mouth was open, but nothing was coming out. I carried this secret for 6 years, Vanessa said. I let your mother call me barren at every dinner table. I let this church pray for my womb. I let you turn your back to me in bed every night like I was defective. I endured all of it because I loved you. And not once in 6 years, did you ever stop to wonder whether the problem might not be me. She turned back to face the full room. So if Michael has 0 sperm count, she said, and there is a baby, then the question is simple. Whose baby is it? She did not look at Daniel. This was deliberate. She looked at the room. She let the room do the work. And it did. Heads were already turning. Eyes were already scanning. 200 brains were completing the equation she had just laid out for them, searching for the variable, searching for the answer that was sitting in the third row in a gray suit with sweat running down his temples. Daniel Hargrove was standing. His chair had fallen behind him. His face was the color of old paper. His mouth was opening and closing, but no sound was coming out. Michael looked at Daniel. The realization crossed his face slowly, floor by floor, like watching a building collapse. Danny? His voice cracked on the name of his best friend, the man who had stood at his wedding, the man who had sat at his table every weekend for years, the man who had looked him in the eye for months while sleeping with the woman carrying the baby. Michael believed was his legacy. Then Ashley stood. She was crying, but she was also done. Michael, I'm sorry, she said, but you know the truth, even if you will not admit it. Daniel and I were together before you. You found out. You told Daniel to step aside. You took me from him because you wanted an heir, and you did not care who got hurt. Daniel was too afraid to say no to you. I was too afraid and too pregnant to fight. The room cracked open, not all at once, the way ice cracks on a lake. One sharp sound and then splitting in every direction. Gasps, whispers, the scraping of chairs. But Vanessa was not finished. She spoke once more, and her voice was steady as stone. There is one more thing, she said. I said I hid Michael's medical results for 6 years. That is true. But I was not the only person who knew he was sterile. The room went impossibly still. Even the people who were already in shock found another level of stillness they did not know existed. Dorothy. Every head in that room turned to Michael's mother. Dorothy Mitchell, church elder, family matriarch, the woman who had spent 6 years calling Vanessa barren and useless and defective in front of every person who would listen. Dorothy knew, Vanessa said. She was at the doctor's office the day Michael was diagnosed as a child. She was told he would never father children. She has known for over 20 years. And she let her son believe the failure was mine. She sat at that dinner table year after year, mocking me, humiliating me, knowing it was her own son who could not. Because admitting the truth would have meant admitting that her perfect son had a flaw. And Dorothy Mitchell does not allow flaws in her legacy. Dorothy's handkerchief fell from her hand. Her mouth was open, but no sound came out. For the first time in her life, the woman who always had something to say had nothing at all. Michael turned to his mother. His face was no longer gray. It was broken, not with rage, with grief. The kind of grief that comes from realizing the person who was supposed to protect you was the one who set you up to fail. Mom, is that true? Did you know? Dorothy said nothing, and her silence was the loudest answer in the room. Vanessa set the microphone down gently on the head table. She placed a manila folder beside it. Divorce papers. Signed, dated, ready. The house belongs to my father, she said, her voice carrying across the room one final time. It always has. You have 48 hours to collect your things. She turned to Ashley. Her voice shifted. Softer now. Almost kind. You have my number, Ashley. When you are ready to talk about custody and support from the actual father, call me. I will help you. You were never my enemy. You were just another person he used. Ashley, still crying, nodded. Vanessa looked at the room, 200 faces staring back at her, some in shock, some in admiration, some already composing the text messages they would send before they reached the parking lot. She smiled. A real smile. Not the performance smile she had worn for 6 years. Not the calculated smile of the past 3 months. A real one. "Thank you all for coming," she said. "The barbecue really is excellent." From the corner table, Brenda stood and picked up her purse. She looked at her father, who was wrapping a rib bone in a paper napkin, with the calm deliberation of a man who has seen far worse than a naming ceremony gone sideways. "Daddy, we are leaving." Robert tucked the napkin into his jacket pocket. "I know. I just want to take some of this brisket home. Man is a terrible husband, but he picked one hell of a caterer." Brenda closed her eyes and exhaled. "You are unbelievable." Robert stood, straightened his jacket, and offered his arm to his youngest daughter. Vanessa took it. The three of them walked toward the door. Vanessa, Robert, and Brenda. 3 generations of people who understood that dignity is not something someone gives you. It is something you carry with you, especially when everyone else expects you to leave it at the door behind them. The room erupted. Michael lunged across the head table toward Daniel. Glasses shattered. The baby screamed. Someone's wife screamed louder. The DJ cut the music. The barbecue station was abandoned. 200 guests scrambled out of the way as Michael grabbed Daniel by the collar, and the 2 men, who had been best friends since college, crashed into a table that had been set for a celebration and was now the wreckage of every lie they had both been living. Vanessa did not look back. Not once. She walked out of that naming ceremony the same way she walked in. Back straight, gold catching the light. Not a single tear on her face. She drove to the Marriott on Highway 75. She checked into a room on the 7th floor. She ordered grilled salmon and a glass of cold white wine from room service. She sat by the window and ate slowly, watching the sun go down over Plano, the city turning gold and then purple and then dark. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. Then it buzzed again. Then it did not stop. Michael's mother. How could you embarrass him like that? You should be ashamed of yourself. Michael's aunt. That was unnecessary, Vanessa. You went too far. Michael's cousin. Family business should stay in the family. Every single message was about Michael's embarrassment. Not one of them mentioned 6 years of Vanessa's humiliation. Not one mentioned the pregnant mistress moved into her home. Not one mentioned the insults, the silence, the mocking, the years of being called barren and useless and defective at dinner tables and church parking lots and family reunions. The moment Michael was the one hurting, the whole family suddenly discovered the concept of compassion. That is something worth paying attention to. When the people who were silent during your pain suddenly find their voice during someone else's consequences, that tells you everything you need to know about whose comfort they were really protecting. Remember that. Vanessa read every message. She did not respond to a single one. Then a text from an unknown number. "This is Ashley. I do not know if you will even read this, but I need to say thank you. I did not deserve your kindness, and neither did Michael. But you gave it anyway, and I will never forget it. Daniel and I are going to figure things out. For the baby, the right way this time." Then a call from Brenda. "It is done," Brenda said. Her voice had the quiet satisfaction of a woman who had been waiting for this moment almost as long as Vanessa had. "Michael's lawyer called mine an hour ago. He is not contesting. He does not want this to drag out. He wants it quiet. He is agreeing to everything. The house stays yours. The settlement is fair. You are free, Vanessa." Long silence. "And Dorothy?" "Michael is not speaking to her," Brenda said. "Neither is half the church." Pastor Whitfield asked her to step down from the elder board. Apparently, the congregation does not take kindly to a woman who spent 6 years persecuting her daughter-in-law for a condition that belonged to her own son. Another silence. Longer this time. I do not feel happy, Brenda. Brenda was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "You are not supposed to. You did the right thing. And the right thing does not always feel good. It just feels finished." Vanessa hung up. She finished her salmon. She sipped her wine. She pulled the curtains closed and lay in the dark of that hotel room, staring at the ceiling the same way she had stared at the ceiling 3 months ago on the night Michael brought Ashley home. But this time the stillness in her eyes was different. 3 months ago it was the stillness of a woman preparing for war. Now it was the stillness of a woman who had finally laid down a weight she had been carrying so long she had forgotten what her shoulders felt like without it. 6 months later. Vanessa sat on the porch of her house on Magnolia Lane. Her house. The house her father had bought and her hands had turned into a home, and no man would ever take from her again. Brenda was beside her in a rocking chair, scrolling through her phone, occasionally reading aloud particularly ridiculous text messages from Michael's relatives who were still, 6 months later, finding new ways to blame Vanessa for the consequences of Michael's own actions. Their father was in the backyard, standing over a grill, turning chicken thighs with the focus and precision of a man who approaches barbecue the same way he approached military operations, methodically, without wasted motion, and with absolute confidence in the outcome. Vanessa had re-enrolled in nursing school. She started classes in the fall. She was thinner than she had been 6 months ago, quieter, but there was something in her eyes that had not been there before. Not hardness, not bitterness, clarity. The kind of clarity that only comes from walking through something that should have destroyed you and discovering that it did not. Her phone buzzed. A photo from Ashley, the baby, now 6 months old, sitting in Daniel Hargrove's lap at a park in Frisco. Daniel was smiling. Not the nervous, guilty, sweating smile Vanessa had seen at the naming ceremony. A real smile, the smile of a man who had finally stepped out from behind his best friend's shadow and into his own life. Ashley's caption read, "He said his first word today. It was Dada, the real one." Vanessa smiled. She set the phone down on the armrest of her chair. She picked up her glass of sweet tea and looked out at the yard. The same cardinals from before were back, chasing each other through the oak tree near the fence. Brenda looked over. "You okay?" Vanessa took a sip of her tea. She felt the ice clink against her teeth. She felt the warmth of the evening sun on her arms. She felt the solidness of the porch beneath her feet. "I wasted 6 years protecting a man who never once thought to protect me," she said. "I am not going to waste another minute being angry about it. I am just going to live." Brenda nodded. She did not say anything else. Some moments do not need more words. They just need someone sitting beside you while the sun goes down. Not every woman who is quiet is weak. Not every woman who stays is stuck. Not every woman who smiles at your cruelty has forgiven it. Some women are simply waiting, patiently, carefully, precisely, waiting for the moment when the truth will cost you the most. Vanessa Mitchell waited 6 years, and when she finally spoke, 200 people heard her. But more importantly, she finally heard herself. The woman she had been protecting all along was not Michael. It was the version of herself she had locked away in a nightstand drawer next to a brown envelope, and a truth she was too kind to use, until kindness was no longer an option. And then she used it with the precision of a surgeon and the patience of a saint. And she walked out the door without looking back, because some women do not need to look back. They already know exactly what they are leaving behind, and they know it was never worth turning around for. Now, I want to hear from you. Drop in the comments the biggest lesson you learned from this story, and if you were in Vanessa's shoes, what would you have done differently? If this story moved you, if it made you feel something, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications, because the next story is even more powerful. And trust me, you do not want to miss it. This content was carefully researched, developed, and manually edited by our team to deliver meaningful life lessons through powerful storytelling. Every word was crafted with purpose, because we believe great stories do not just entertain. They change the way you see the world.